Welcome to The Switch, podcasts that are wired to online and offline marketing.
Alrighty, welcome back to The Switch, wired for online and offline marketing. Turn your branding on with a little bit of education piece that we've got lined up for you right now. Things that will make or break a website, a brochure, any offline marketing.
Yes.
So
even a
important.
logo.
Even a logo, yeah. But we are here to talk about fonts. Now, Wayne, being our branding guru, you love that word, don't you? Being our branding guru.
Dean coined the phrase, but
fonts are a very contentious issue. Whenever we approach a client regarding fonts, if they haven't had any sort of branding done, it's always an issue.
Yes.
They have their own opinions on what looks good, what doesn't look good.
Yeah.
They don't understand the power of typography, and they think shoving more information on a website is better than less.
Yes. Well, I mean, I first got introduced to typography as a sign writer. So I started sign writing when I was 14 years of age.
Wow.
And I was taught by an old brushie out of the UK, and he was taught by a true craftsman back in the UK. So I had a really good background, but that's where I started to really love letter shapes and fonts, and I could appreciate it because I was literally painting them with a brush, and I was anal about letter shapes and making sure that they looked perfect.
Wow.
So I was very slow initially at sign writing, but my speed picked up with my confidence. So in that space, I really grew to love typography, and especially some of the classic old fonts like Helvetica.
Yeah.
Like just true classics. But bringing that back to now, I think that people, the right font could make or break, a brand mark. They can make or break a piece of marketing material like a brochure.
Absolutely.
The wrong font is used, or the wrong point size, the spacing, everything. The readability of a product, how easy it is to read or how difficult. And some people get carried away, and it's normally the non-professionals get carried away with using a trendy, different looking font. Oh, it's really different, I really like it, but it doesn't necessarily communicate the tone of the piece that it's being applied to.
Yeah, it's got to fit purpose, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and
it's got to evoke emotion.
Absolutely, and if a font is being used, say in a logo, or if it's being used in a headline on a press advertisement, it needs to be appropriate to what the story is about, to what the business is about. Just like an icon or the logo in general needs to be appropriate, the font needs to be appropriate as well.
Yeah.
So you're not going to use a soft script type font, on a blokey type trade business, and just the same, you're not going to use a big strong Helvetica font on somebody that's selling flowers or doing something in that sort of range of business.
Yeah.
So it requires some thought, and also what I find is that there are definite trends within the marketplace, and a lot of people follow those trends, and a lot of even designers will follow those trends to an extent. But you don't use a font just because it's trendy.
No.
You don't use it because it's the flavour of the month. You use it because it's appropriate for the scope of works that you're creating.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of pieces of communication get let down. But also I see some wonderful typography out there all the time, and I've got an eye for
Expensive.
it. So really, yes, absolutely.
Expensive.
Yeah. And obviously in the web space as well, certain fonts are appropriate and some aren't. And obviously systems and what fonts are on people's systems and everything like that, and have the use of dynamic fonts and typically what used to happen in the good old days, I'm talking when computers weren't necessarily being used very often, they had just come onto the scene, and we used to use type houses who would produce a bromide of a press ad for us that we'd mark up. We'd tell that we wanted Times New Roman, 9 on 10 point, ranged left, and we'd give them all the information, the kerning, the spacing, and then they would produce the typographic piece, and then we'd literally wax it and put it down on the board, take another photo, and then supply that to the newspaper or the magazine or whatever. Those days are very, very interesting, and you really didn't have to know your fonts and how to use it and how to mark up. Now you don't need to do that so much because everybody's creating it on their computers, their systems, and whatever through their own professional programs. But my advice to people out there that are putting stuff together themselves is they should probably do a little bit more homework around the use of fonts, using sans serif versus serif, headline type fonts versus fonts that are going to be in body copy. Certain typefaces are easier to read, and there's stats and proof around that. Just due diligence, and don't push for the trendy stuff. If someone's giving you advice, a professional's giving you advice and saying, no, that's the wrong typeface for this particular job, it's communicating the wrong thing, then take their advice, heed their advice, and you'll get the benefit out of it.
Because let's face it, if you do choose a font or lean towards a particular font and you haven't consulted anyone about it, the chances are you're going to be using that font for several years. It could be a logo, could be your website, and it really sets the tone of your branding.
And if it's a trend or if it's something really fancy that you just happen to like, how's that going to look in 12 months' time? Or 2 years' time? And what's that going to say about your business or your communication pieces when the end user is reading through it or trying to understand what it is you're communicating? Those things are all hugely important and quite often overlooked. So we're not just talking about it because I love typography, we're talking about it because it is very important in communications in general.
But there's a whole range of startups out there. Okay, you got the people who are looking for funding for Series A, Series B funding.
Yeah.
Then you got the business at home startup who really on a shoestring trying to get out the rat race, trying to
do their own thing,
determine their own destiny.
Yeah.
And those are the ones who actually can't afford to go and.
Absolutely. And look, Mr. Google is a great place to go if you want to learn a little bit more about typography and what fonts are, would be pertinent to a particular type of job or a space. Just look it up, do some research.
Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff you can find out about fonts and how to use typography and how to use it in conjunction with creating your own logo, or how to use it in conjunction with press ads and headlines. And we tend to, if we're doing a brochure, if we're doing stationery for a client, we tend to use a font family that has huge scope. You've got your lights, you've got your thins, your lights, your mediums, regulars, semi-bolds, bolds, heavies, extra bolds, because you've got really nice contrast within that font family to use on a product to pinpoint and also create contrast with the way a headline, a subhead, pull out text words as opposed to body copy text, signature text or sign off text. So it gives you a lot more scope and a lot more flexibility. I was given a job to create some stationery for a company a few years ago, and they had all this stuff professionally done, and I got the style guide, and the font that they'd used literally had 2 weights, and the 2 weights were very, very similar.
Yeah.
And the client said to me, "Oh, no, we want those to stand out more." And I'm, I can't make it stand out more. We'll have to change your font. No, I paid a fortune for that. We want that font. I'm going, well, I can't do anything about it. Whoever chose this font has given you one that is very similar in weight, from a regular to a bold, and that's it. There's no other flexibility. That's the font. There is no other flexibility within that font family to expand on that, to give you something really strong and contrasting compared to a lighter typeface. So I'm kind of stuck where I am.
Very one-dimensional.
Yeah, I had to explain that. So typically, if you're doing something like that, creating a brand identity and a scope, a style guide, that you really want a font family that gives you that flexibility, and then gives the client, a primary font and a secondary font, and how to use it under different situations, and then your life is a lot easier. So, but if you're just a single operator and you're trying to get going on your own, do a little bit of research online, try and understand it a bit more so that when you're putting stuff together yourself, You've just got your head around it, and you're then producing something that's going to work better for you in the long run.
Because it's going to last a long time.
Of course,
and
yeah.
it's so important.
Absolutely.
You at Notions, you've done a lot of work for our clients, creating some brand identities, and you do an amazing job manipulating fonts into and integrating it into a logo. Do you create your own fonts?
I used to create complete typefaces and libraries so that people could use them. But what I found was at the time with the clientele that I had, my business has changed and morphed so many times.
Yeah.
And so I will create a font specifically for a logo and the use of that logo and the naming of that logo. But I don't typically will produce a complete typeface and a font set that they can use elsewhere.
Sure.
I tend to stick to some of the classics because they're easy for the clients to get hold of.
And they're tried and tested as well.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a lot less problems going cross-platform, across everywhere, easier to get hold of, easy to find. So they're not having to then supply, a unique font to every single person they're using. I'm not saying that that's not the way to go. It's, that works as well. But I just try to make it easy for my clients. That's my own personal take on it. But we will create and manipulate fonts and styles and do stuff where we vectorize and hand draw fonts and whatever. Again, as long as it's appropriate for the task and the scope of works, no problems at all.
And free versus paid? Massive selection, massive choice.
Yeah.
You've got Google Fonts, you've got Adobe, you've got a whole heap of...
so much easier now for the average person.
Absolutely.
And so much more cost effective.
And very subtle differences between fonts as well, which makes it so extremely hard to choose from.
You don't want to look into my fonts folder.
Absolutely not.
It's just a huge giant of a beast. And
so when we were choosing a font, I don't know if we'd actually met back in 2014 when I rebranded to Burning Fruit, but we actually put our font and our logo out to the audience.
Yes.
We asked people like Lorraine. I think you may
have seen it. I did.
You were there, and we just said, "Hey guys, what are you thinking?"
That's great.
It's a bit of a risk there as well. And luckily, our sort of emblem has changed a bit, but the actual core font hasn't actually changed much. So, and we don't use italics. we just got one font in that font family. We can't deviate from it, but it sort of stands out, which is we're pretty lucky in that sort of sense.
But if that's the primary font and you've got a secondary font that you use for other communications, a body copy and whatever, then it's not an issue.
Yeah.
But if you're picking a font that's going to be used through stationery and communications, then you're better off picking something that has more flexibility and contrast within the font family itself. So, and I've seen, obviously, I know your font. I think it's appropriate for your business and especially the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've got a company called Mother, and you're using some big, strong, bold, industrial font, and then versus something that's wispy and motherly and curvaceous and nurturing.
Yeah.
Like the two mean and communicate something totally different. So that's what I mean about being appropriate. So the Burning Fruit font it's appropriate for what you are, who you are, and what you represent. So, and that's the key thing. That's the thing that I'm trying to communicate today.
Be
appropriate.
Funny you mentioned Mother. The drink Mother.
Yes.
Very,
exactly. And again, it's appropriate for the market and the scope of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I sent you that meme that said, "I love you" or something, and one was done in a font, and the other one was done like in a splatter. Like using the right font can have two different meanings. There you go. You'll always be mine. Classic example of appropriate use of font.
So
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Just Dino, District 32. Any interesting story behind the font that you've chosen?
I'd say I'm largely not involved.
Are you saying that's a good thing, Dean?
Yeah, no, I'd have to say, I suppose pre-District 32, I didn't have an appreciation of design and of branding. It's only after we kicked off, so it's largely kind of Lorraine that's driven it, but I've learned a lot. I suppose I have a deeper appreciation of branding and marketing versus maybe what I had a decade ago. I understand the importance of it. I suppose we done a mini rebrand after, I think it was 2 years, and I was just really surprised to people who made comments on it. So obviously people do
They
notice.
notice, yeah.
So I suppose what I've noticed I'm not sure if it's a trend, but some business cards I've got in recent times have been terrible. Like, as in, I know I'm using glasses myself, but some of the writing is just so small.
So small, absolutely.
Or there's too much information, something like that. But even when I put the glasses on, so yeah. But no, I do have a deeper appreciation than I would have say 10 years ago.
Well, you are also embarking on the Scalpreneurs, so
Yeah.
that's going to be a global District 32 presence.
Yeah, so it's exciting. So March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Well, go figure.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Another picture on your Facebook
Yeah.
page, eh?
Lorraine might be on her own that day.
So that font,
Yeah.
it's got to stand up to the test of the global audience now.
Yeah.
It's very well known right here in Perth, probably across Australia. So good luck with
Yeah,
that.
I appreciate it.
We'll hopefully see you in Islamabad or India or somewhere. That
It'll be a huge success, I'm sure.
I speak the lingo.
It's got good people behind it.
Oh, cheers. Thanks a million. Appreciate it.
Just talking about a bit of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, a bit of retro, a bit of fontage going on. We, after our industry review, we are just going to do a bit of a timeline, which is going to be really, really interesting. Okay. This timeline is all about Airbnb. Okay.
Yes.
So the timeline, firstly, thank you so much, Wayne. That was a great insight to fonts, and we are going to be ultra critical about not only the fonts, but the imagery of what's happening here. So someone, probably Instagram, has kindly added a timeline of the Airbnb brand. So they started 2007, and it actually, there we go, Air, Bed and Breakfast.
The early days.
Yeah, the early days of that. Oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
Still, well, obviously during the first incarnation of Web 2.0, does it feel like some kid in a bedroom?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it funny how you can really, when you put them side by side and you see how a company has evolved with their brand and the look and feel, the tone, how it can be dramatic and clearly the way this started off. Has that sort of feel, doesn't it?
Oh, it's scary how we recognize.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So from a user experience perspective, in those days, user experience was very, very, very new. I'd only been doing sort of user experience projects for about 5 years. Honestly. I mean, it's obviously got the booking side of things there. Yeah. It's got a video there. It's got a nice little sort of infographic here. So they are ticking a few UX marks there.
Yeah.
Not a bad start, I would say, considering it's 2007.
Yeah, they started with some good advice.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. I've got a nice little tagline, Air, Bed and Breakfast, forget hotels.
Yep.
So really pushing, obviously, the map items there, so you could actually visually see, which is a really good move.
Yeah, absolutely.
And font hasn't really changed that much from the first one. It's just they just reorientated it.
And the way they're using the colours and the way they've broken it up is very similar.
Yeah, that's right. And the user experience of having something visual so you can see where you are in relation to everything else is a pretty cool move. Moving on to 2009.
And we see the abbreviation.
Airbnb, look at that.
Love it, yeah.
Bit more of a tall boy there.
Yep.
Something visual in the top, so you can actually dream of where you're actually going to go, plus the search becoming more and more relevant as you go. It's no longer up in the top header, it's really front and center. Yes. And that's really doing a good bit of user experience testing where people really don't care about the company. They just care about what experience they're going to have when they book through Airbnb.
Exactly.
So again, getting better and better as you go.
And you can see this sense of maturity coming through
Yeah.
everything they're doing.
Yeah. It's like what we're going back to, less is more.
Yeah.
Less is more. Moving down, here we go. Bit more modern day.
I don't
strangely
know.
enough, 2010.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't recall seeing that version at all.
No,
So
I
it
remember.
must not have been in the marketplace very long.
No.
I mean, I think it's atrocious compared to where we've just come from.
Yeah, I
It
think
just
for a
seems
2007
very-
version.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just gone down a level in professionalism, and yeah, I don't know. It doesn't work for me at all. So, and I was surprised when I saw that. As I said, I don't actually recall seeing that version at all.
But you know how Airbnb started? Is that they hacked Craigslist, and then every time someone clicked on a listing in Craigslist, they popped over to Airbnb, and they eventually found the fix for it, Craigslist. But by then, Airbnb had
They already established themselves and
absolutely, but
made a huge database.
they were eating cereals for
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
These guys, so it wasn't an overnight success by any means.
No.
From a user experience perspective, obviously very, very similar to the previous incarnation, but really including the map, getting phonage in there. Very cluttered though.
Yeah.
I agree
A
with you.
lot happening.
Subtle tweaks back in 2011. And now 2012, really looking at full frame header, really focusing on the search and really stripping.
Starting to look more of a bigger player too. They're looking more professional, a bigger player. They're
Absolutely.
just,
Kept the font though. Kept the font. Slight variations in the font there.
Yep.
But look at that. It's looking very, very clean, very nice, very, very well thought through. On phones now. 2014, looking very, very refined, and look at that huge change in font there. Huge,
massive corporate change. It has a way more corporate feel.
Absolutely.
More of a world player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think the symbolism behind the logo is?
Well, I'm seeing the A and the drop, the location drop.
Nice.
And I like it. It's cool.
Yeah. Very, very cool. Very cool. It's pretty close to what we actually see today. You got 2015 there with a slight variation there. Just really changing things up slightly, moving the search down a little bit just to give the header a little bit more space to breathe. Now really clean. In fact, nothing in the top header.
Very, very simplistic.
Very simplistic.
Confidence, maturity, knowing who they are, where they are in the market space, and what they control, and the power that they have. It's all represented.
Yeah, that's where we are now. Look at that.
Yeah. Awesome.
They're on TV. They're on TV. It's a great progression. Really, it's a really it's a really good example of why you shouldn't be afraid to change it up. And grow your brand into something that's bigger than what you think it's going to be.
Yep. But their willingness is clearly shown as well and showcased, the willingness to embrace change and not be left behind. I mean, if you look at those earlier incantations, they looked more like a very small community-based, even like just doing, bed and breakfast in the local city or town, and then all of a sudden now you've got this world-beating company that truly reflects that confidence they have in the market.
That's right, and when you
the
read
power that they have,
and when you read the story, it just gives other startups confidence that you can start anywhere. It doesn't take a whole massive business.
Absolutely.
And, when we started Venue Maestro, very similar concept. We're up against some big companies there, but we're pretty close to leading the market. So. It gives everyone else a lot of confidence that if these guys can get where they are today from where they were, anyone can do it.
And also just be up for the journey, because it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Be up for the journey and be willing to embrace the change and look at what's happening. And, that their brand itself changed a number of times, and that would have been being reflected by what's happening in the marketplace and who is buying from them,
Yeah.
and where they were buying from and how they were expanding as a business. I really enjoyed that.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I really enjoyed that.
From a District 32 perspective, I was there in the pre-incarnation
Yeah.
of District 32, and I've watched your journey.
Yeah, it's interesting because I suppose it was our 7th birthday yesterday.
Birthday,
Oh, that's right. Congratulations.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a million.
Brilliant.
But it's amazing when you look at some of the older stuff, and it kind of, even though it's not a long time ago, 5-6 years ago, it looks a bit dated. But I mean, it was a starting point. So I suppose I think, as Wayne said there, you got to be a bit brave and review it and have a look at it. But it is amazing looking at even our progression, even in terms of what we look like and how we do things. And
Yeah.
I suppose my role is obviously in the front line, but sometimes I suppose when we're at team meetings, I do be blown away about what the guys are doing in the background in terms of the communication and the systems. And I go, wow, it's amazing from what it was
To where you are now.
Yeah, it's a different beast.
Well, everyone watches, and you must get a lot of confidence and courage watching not only the businesses around you grow as you grow, because you're probably one of the main facilitators of why they are growing, because you give education on business, you give education on sales, you give education on basically how to actually connect in the business marketplace.
Yeah, I have to say, Steve, it's a real buzz when one of our members takes something, whether it's a piece of knowledge, not even directly from District 32, but it could be from meeting you guys in Joondalup and taking it running, and they'd say, oh, I met with Steve or Wayne and I've done this, and you can see the difference. It's phenomenal, and they've got confidence because they're dealing with experts. Or if they take stuff from us through what we're doing online or at events, and it's a buzz, or even just connecting people. I just get a buzz out of it.
Yeah, I don't think you have any peers when it comes to how or what you provide from an educational and training perspective.
Mm.
I mean that has always been your I think your strength.
Yeah.
And when people join District 32, a lot of these people are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to grow their business, to expand. So what you're offering them is critical.
I think what I've learned myself, even I'm doing sales 30 years, networking nearly the same at the time. But I think what I've really learned from my own experience in District 30 was sometimes the knowledge is more important than a lead. I mean, you could give me a lead that's worth $1,000, but you guys have experience, so you could give me a bit of knowledge that's worth 100 grand to me. It'll impact on my brand, which has a chain reaction. So the knowledge is so key. I mean, if you get a group of people together, if you're a good citizen, introductions, referrals will happen. But if you can use off the experience and the knowledge in the room, it's just phenomenal potential.
Absolutely, yeah. You hit it on the head. Well, a lot of people don't see that.
No.
And a lot of people don't, and a lot of people do. And the ones that do remain open to learning and experiencing new things are the ones that show that massive growth.
Yeah.
And you're teaching them as well the benefits of exactly that. Talking, teaching people, giving you knowledge. Like you said earlier, you don't have to pay for the stuff. You don't have to get paid for the stuff that you know. Just give it freely. Educate people. Give them some advice.
Yeah.
Give, and things will come back.
100%.
Always.
And it's even like at District 32, at the end of the day, it's a platform. So what you guys need, I need the same stuff as well. That motivation, inspiration, the knowledge and the education from people around the table as well. So it's been like for me personally, I've learned what I've learned in the last 7 years has been phenomenal from the people in the room. So
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah, awesome.
Nice one.